Hi, everybody. It is late and I'm about to go to sleep, but I wanted to do this one video because it is December 7th today. And today would have been my dad's 97th birthday, I believe. So he passed away in 2017. And I want to say I had a love-hate relationship with him. But I wanted to talk about him because it's his birthday today. When my dad was younger, when I was a child, I want to say he gave me the best childhood ever. He was such a loving, silly, funny, loyal man. He was in love with me. I feel it from the depths of my heart that he was in love with me. Like he was so in love with his little girl. And he loved my mom. He loved his wife so much. Like he would have died for her. So he had a lot of heart. He also had a lot of faith. And I want to say that his faith, he was a very, very hardcore Baptist Christian. And his faith was so strong. I truly believe it's the reason he lived to 91. Because he was an angry man too. He was very angry in life. Like he always thought life never really worked well in his favor. So he was always angry about things. And he also had a heart condition. And so why did he live so long? It's literally because of his faith. He always asked for forgiveness. He always forgave, and he always talked to the Lord. So I never discounted him for his faith. I always respected his faith. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about him. I wanted to honor him because he really gave me a great childhood. So in my teenage years and then when I became an adult, he didn't know how to handle me, I want to say. He didn't know how to handle a girl that was super sassy, that thought she knew everything. I was also the only child, so I might have had some brattiness in me. So he didn't know how to handle that. And then also he had moved to not the US. He had moved to Canada from Southeast Asia. So I think also he didn't know how to handle me being raised in the Western world. He didn't know how to handle the culture that I was growing up in. And he didn't know how to handle me growing up. And I didn't know how to handle him either. I did not act like he expected me to act. He expected me to act like this very obedient person that would have grown up in his country. And I didn't. We didn't get along in my teenage years. And then in my early adult life, we didn't get along either. When I started getting older, I started feeling a lot of guilt. Like I knew my parents were getting older and my dad was getting sick all the time. I started trying to make up for being like a bad daughter. At that point, I just wanted to be a good daughter. And so the more he didn't know how to handle me, like I feel like he started getting resentful towards me for things. Also, when my mom and him met, my mom and him, I guess, had comparable salaries. But at some point, my mom surpassed him, like through raises and promotions or whatever. So she was the one making more money in the family, and I think he also resented that. In my later years, or when he started getting older, when I started, like I guess in my early 30s, I started to feel guilty, and I tried to make amends with him. Fast forward to when my husband and I got married. He really loved my husband. He paid for our wedding. So I'm so grateful to him for that. It was also, at the time, I was also really trying my hardest to get along with him. And so I would do, like I was at his beck and call. I was a people pleaser with him. Also because I didn't know, I was so afraid of him dying because he was always sick. So I always wanted to make sure that him and I were on good terms before he died. So I was always like putting things aside, putting my life on hold so I could do things for him, including moving him down to California from Canada. There came a time when my dad was getting so sick all the time, and we didn't really have any family members up there to help him. And so I would always have to fly to Canada to take care of him, and then miss work and stuff like that. So my husband and I decided to sponsor him and bring him to the U.S. And so we did do that. And things were great for a while. But then my dad sold his house in Canada and he bought a house here in California. And then he wanted me and my husband and him to live in the house together. So we did. But that's when things with our relationship changed, because we believed that he was starting to get resentful and territorial about his home, even though he said it was our home. So long story short, things weren't going well. My husband and him were fighting all the time. There was one time my dad called the cops on my husband because he was scared of my husband. My husband didn't lay a hand on him at all, a finger on him. But it was my dad got scared or something, called the cops. Cops came over. They basically told all of us that we need to settle our domestic issues on our own, and they told my dad to stop calling them. Yeah. So fast forward to, I guess, to before he passed. I was ready for him to pass. I mean, I was ready to let him go. I had realized over time that I needed to start taking care of myself. I was always wanting to take care of him, to make sure that he was comfortable, that he was fine, that he was happy with me. And I sacrificed so much. I sacrificed trips with my husband. I sacrificed work. I sacrificed conceiving. I sacrificed having a baby and the reason, like, my husband and I were trying to get pregnant at the time. And I know for a fact that part of why it was so difficult for me to conceive was because of the stress that I was under. My dad would call and ask for things, and he would say that he was sick or dying or feeling unwell. And I would rush over to him and pick him up to take him to the hospital or take him to the doctor, take him to the pharmacy or whatever, because I was so afraid of something bad happening to him. If I would call him like at night and he wouldn't answer the phone, I would rush to his house just to make sure he was alive. Like, that's how and I put my life on hold. And I was getting older too, and I was freaking out because I was getting older and I wanted to start a family. But then here's my elderly father, and he's still very much alive, and I wanted to be everything to everyone, and I couldn't. And at some point, I needed to make a choice. And so I decided to choose, and this happened, I decided to choose me and my life. And this choice happened one day where, for the 10th time, the ER called me saying, "Hey, your dad's in the hospital, doesn't look good." It's the same conversation every time. And then my dad would get discharged from the hospital. And then he would keep using the hospital stay as a reason for me to have to go and take care of him again. Anyway, this last time the hospital called me, I rushed to the hospital. He had fallen, hit his head. He was in the ICU. He was fine. They just wanted to do tests on him. But because he was an elderly man and he had a heart condition, they wanted to make sure that there was no concussion or anything like that. And they were asking me, do I want a DNR, a do not resuscitate? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You're saying that this is close to death here? But I realized it's protocol, especially when the patient is older. But anyway, so my dad had just entered the ICU, and my husband and I had a trip that we were going to take the following morning. And I had a choice. I could cancel the trip to stay with my father to make sure that he's okay, or I can go on the trip. It was a hard decision, but I decided to go on the trip. And I told my dad, I'm going to go on this trip. You knew about this trip. If you love me and you want me to be happy, you'll be okay with me going on this trip. So my husband and I went on the trip, and this actually was a blessing in disguise, because I had called some of my friends, and I had called one of my cousins that lives in the city, to ask if they would all go visit him and take care of him while I was gone. And they all did. My dad made a lot of new friends. My cousin rekindled her relationship with my dad. Like, there was so many good things that happened out of this. But my dad was resentful. When I got back from the trip, he was resentful. I don't know that he ever got over it completely, but he did know that I made a choice. That I made a choice to stop putting him before I put myself. So I don't know if anyone is listening that is going through something similar, but it was a hard decision for me. Honestly, I'm glad I made this decision. If I didn't make this decision, I don't think I would be where I am today. Fast forward to his dying days. He did get dementia. The dementia got really bad. The recommendation from the ER, because he kept calling the ER, was to put him in a skilled nursing home. So I did. I visited him all the time. I had the honor of introducing him to our son, Evan, who we had just adopted. And I'm so glad that he got to meet Evan. When he started getting severe dementia, he started becoming like the way he was when I was a little kid. So he was sweeter, he was nicer, he talked to me sweeter, in a sweet voice. I hadn't heard him speak to me that way since I was little. So it was really nice that he talked to me that way. He couldn't eat properly. Like, they had to tube feed him because he could no longer swallow. So he was asking, when I get better, can we go to a restaurant? And I said yes, So it was sad. But at the same time, I was ready to let him go. He had a beautiful life. And he has such a great legacy with me. I want to say that because of him, I have the amazing family that I have. And because of him, he gave me such a foundational childhood that I could give that same childhood to my children. So I want to honor my dad. And it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. Thank you for everything. And I know that everything that you did and everything that you didn't do, everything that you said, everything that you didn't say is 100% absolutely perfect. And I am your only child. I am living your legacy. And because of you, I am raising a powerful family. And your grandchildren, my children, are going to grow up to be powerful human beings because you were a powerful human being. I just remembered this. My dad came from a developing country, and it was war-torn. World War I, World War II. His country was torn apart. He had to hide in the mountains. He had lost his brother. Like, his brother was like 5 years old during the war. Like, there was so many hard times that my dad had. And then when he grew up, his parents left all 3 siblings land, and his brother took his land away. My dad fought for that land, like, so much. And then my dad sat down with me and he said, I'm only fighting for this land because I want you to have it. And I said, oh my gosh, you're fighting for this land for me? And at the time, like, I didn't ever have the intent or the desire to do anything in the Philippines, let alone have land in the Philippines. So I'm like, just give it to him. Tell him it's a gift from you, or a gift from me. He has 5 kids that want that land. You have 1 kid that doesn't want the land. It's okay. Like, And so anyway, that was so touching because my dad fought for it for me, only to realize I didn't want it. And so he was okay with giving it to his brother. But, my dad was a good man. He was a loyal man, and I love him. I love him. And thank you, Dad. Thank you. Happy birthday.